Ladies and gentlemen, today I stand before you with a question that has shaken the foundations of belief, science, and philosophy. Did this man kill God? Throughout history, great thinkers, scientists, and revolutionaries have challenged religious beliefs, altering the way humanity perceives divinity. But did anyone truly succeed in killing God? Or does the idea of God transcend all human challenges? The Age of Enlightenment sparked skepticism toward religious institutions, marking a turning point in human thought. Before this period, religious authorities held immense power over societies, dictating laws, moral values, and even scientific understanding. However, as the Enlightenment era emerged in the 17th and 18th centuries, intellectuals began advocating for reason, individual liberty, and empirical evidence over blind faith. Thinkers like Voltaire, John Locke, and Immanuel Kant challenged the idea that divine authority should govern human affairs. They argued that human beings should rely on reason rather than religious dogma to shape their societies. This newfound emphasis on critical thinking led to the questioning of long-held religious doctrines, with people beginning to demand logical explanations for the world around them rather than accepting traditional theological interpretations. As these ideas spread, religious institutions that had once been considered untouchable started losing their grip on power. The Catholic Church, which had dominated European society for centuries, faced growing opposition as people became more aware of corruption within the clergy, the misuse of religious authority, and the suppression of scientific advancements. The trial of Galileo Galilei is a prime example, where scientific discovery was seen as a threat to religious teachings. As the Enlightenment progressed, individuals no longer felt compelled to accept religious truths as absolute. They explored alternative philosophies, political systems, and ethical frameworks that did not necessarily depend on divine authority. Governments, once heavily intertwined with religious institutions, started separating from them, giving birth to the modern concept of secularism. The shift in thinking was not simply about rejecting religion, but about encouraging freedom of thought, discussion, and debate. While the Enlightenment did not outright kill God and undeniably weaken the stronghold of religious institutions, making way for the rise of science, democracy, and human rights. The period proved that human progress was possible without strict adherence to religious authority, planting the seeds for modern skepticism and critical inquiry that continue to shape the world today. Figures like Charles Darwin, with his theory of evolution, presented ideas that seemed to contradict religious teachings. Before Darwin's time, the dominant belief, especially in Christian societies, was that God created all living beings in their current form, as described in religious texts. The idea of divine creation was deeply embedded in people's understanding of life, and questioning it was considered heretical. However, in 1859, Darwin published On the Origin of Species, introducing the concept of natural selection. He argued that species were not fixed but evolved over time through a process of adaptation to their environment. This challenged the idea of a purposeful divine creation and suggested that life's complexity could arise through natural processes rather than a conscious designer. The impact of Darwin's work was profound. Many religious leaders and believers saw it as a direct attack on the authority of religious texts. If humans were not uniquely created by God, but rather have evolved from earlier life forms, where did that leave the idea of a divine plan? This led to fierce debates between scientists and theologians. Some completely rejected Darwin's ideas, seeing them as dangerous and undermining faith, while others sought ways to reconcile evolution with religious beliefs. Over time, some religious groups adapted, viewing evolution as a mechanism guided by God rather than one that excluded him. Still, Darwin's work contributed to a growing movement of secular thought, pushing people to question long-standing religious explanations about human origins. The controversy surrounding evolution did not end in Darwin's time. Even today, discussions about evolution versus creationism persist in schools, political debates, and religious discourse. Darwin's ideas played a significant role in shifting people's perspectives on human existence, making scientific reasoning a powerful force in understanding life's origins and challenging traditional religious narratives in a way that had never been done before. Friedrich Nietzsche famously declared, "God is dead. He wasn't celebrating a victory, but mourning a world where faith was fading, leaving people without moral anchors. Nietzsche's statement was not a literal claim that a deity had died, but rather a metaphor for the decline of religious belief in Western society. He observed that as science, reason, and philosophy advanced, people increasingly turned away from traditional religious structures that had once provided meaning and moral guidance. He feared that the absence of God would lead to a void in human purpose, resulting in a society that lacked a clear moral foundation. In his view, religious belief had provided a framework for ethics, values, and a sense of order, and without it, humanity risked descending into nihilism, the belief that life has no inherent meaning or purpose. Nietzsche's declaration was meant to be both a warning and a challenge. He urged humanity to create new values, to move beyond traditional religious morality and define meaning for themselves. He introduced the idea of the Übermensch or Overman, an individual who could rise above the constraints of outdated moral codes and forge their own path. However, his ideas were often misunderstood or misinterpreted. Some saw his statement as an endorsement of atheism and the rejection of all religious and moral principles, while others recognized it as a deeper philosophical inquiry into the consequences of a world where traditional faith was diminishing. Nietzsche's words influenced generations of thinkers, writers, and leaders, shaping existential philosophy and modern discussions about morality and purpose. His declaration, "God is dead," remains one of the most provocative and debated statements in philosophical history, forcing people to grapple with the implications of a world where belief in God is no longer a given. Atheism and secularism have risen, questioning the necessity of God. Throughout history, belief in a higher power was almost universal, shaping laws, ethics, and cultures. However, as scientific knowledge expanded and societies modernized, skepticism about the existence of God grew. The rise of atheism can be traced back to several key historical events, including the Enlightenment, the Industrial Revolution, and the spread of scientific discoveries that explain natural phenomena without invoking divine intervention. People began to see religion not as an absolute truth, but as one of many belief systems shaped by culture and history. With the decline of religious authority and governance, secularism became more widespread, advocating for the separation of church and state. This shift allowed people to engage with moral and ethical questions without relying on religious doctrine. Philosophers such as Karl Marx, Sigmund Freud, and Richard Dawkins have argued that belief in God is either a human psychological need, a form of social control, or an outdated explanation for the unknown. As education and literacy rates increased, people were exposed to diverse perspectives, leading many to question traditional religious teachings. The horrors of war, natural disasters, and human suffering also led some to doubt the existence of a benevolent deity, fueling the argument that the universe operates independently of divine will. While religious faith remains strong in many parts of the world, atheism and secularism have become significant forces, particularly in developed nations where scientific advancement and individual freedoms are emphasized. The growth of technology and the accessibility of information have further accelerated this trend, making it easier for individuals to explore different viewpoints and arrive at their own conclusions about the necessity of God. Despite this rise, the debate between faith and reason continues, with some arguing that secularism provides freedom from religious dogma, while others claim it removes the spiritual and moral guidance that religion once provided. Despite skepticism, faith remains strong worldwide. Religion continues to be a central part of human existence, shaping cultures, traditions, and personal identities. Even in societies where secularism has gained traction, billions of people still find meaning, purpose, and comfort in their religious beliefs. The persistence of faith can be attributed to several factors, including the human desire for connection, moral guidance, and answers to existential questions. Throughout history, religion has provided a framework for understanding the mysteries of life, offering explanations for birth, death, suffering, and the afterlife. It has given people a sense of belonging, uniting them in communities of shared values and traditions. In times of hardship, faith has been a source of hope and resilience, helping individuals endure struggles by believing in a higher purpose. Even as scientific progress challenges traditional religious narratives, many believers see no contradiction between faith and reason, viewing religion as a complementary force rather than an opposing one. Religious institutions continue to influence social and political movements advocating for human rights, charity, and justice. The persistence of faith is also evident in the way people turn to religion during crises, whether it be personal tragedy, war, or economic hardship. The need for spiritual guidance remains strong, demonstrating that belief in God is not merely a historical relic, but an enduring part of human nature. While atheism and secularism have grown, religion has not disappeared. Instead, it has adapted, evolving with thought while retaining its significance in the lives of billions. The fact that faith continues to thrive despite centuries of challenges and criticisms suggests that belief in God is deeply ingrained in human consciousness, providing a foundation for meaning and purpose that many still find irreplaceable. Some scientists now view science and spirituality as compatible. For centuries, science and religion were often seen as opposing forces, with scientific discoveries frequently challenging religious doctrines. However, in recent years, many scholars and scientists have argued that the two can coexist rather than be in conflict. Science seeks to understand the natural world through observation, experimentation, and empirical evidence, while spirituality and religion explore questions of meaning, morality, and purpose, areas that science does not necessarily address. Some scientists argue that the complexity and order of the universe point to the possibility of a higher intelligence rather than random chance. The fine-tuning of the universe, the intricacies of DNA, and the precise conditions necessary for life have suggest that scientific discoveries can complement rather than contradict belief in God. Prominent figures like Albert Einstein, who famously stated, "Science without religion is lame. Without religion, without science is blind," acknowledge that both fields offer valuable insights into human existence. Even within religious communities, there is a growing acceptance of scientific principles, with many seeing evolution, the Big Bang, and other theories as part of a divine plan rather than a challenge to faith. The search for meaning remains a fundamental human pursuit. And while science provides answers to how the universe works, it does not necessarily address why it exists or what purpose, if any, lies behind it. As a result, many people find that science and spirituality fulfill different but complementary roles in understanding existence. This perspective has led to increased dialogue between theologians and scientists, fostering a more nuanced discussion on the relationship between faith and reason. Rather than viewing science and religion as adversaries, many now see them as two different ways of exploring the same profound mysteries of life and the universe. The Age of Enlightenment sparked skepticism toward religious institutions, marking a profound shift in human thought. Before this period, religion dominated nearly every aspect of life, from governance and education to ethics and scientific inquiry. The Catholic Church, in particular, held immense power in Europe, dictating societal norms and controlling access to knowledge. However, as the Enlightenment emerged in the 17th and 18th centuries, such as Voltaire, John Locke, and Immanuel Kant began advocating for reason, logic, and empirical evidence over religious dogma. These philosophers challenged the idea that divine authority should govern human affairs, arguing instead for individual liberty, scientific progress, and the pursuit of knowledge based on observation and experimentation rather than faith alone. This intellectual movement led to widespread questioning of religious doctrines that had long been accepted without dispute. People began to demand rational explanations for natural phenomena instead of attributing everything to divine will. Scientific advancements, such as Galileo's support of heliocentrism, further weakened the authority of religious institutions by demonstrating that certain long-held beliefs were factually incorrect. As literacy rates improved and more people gained access to books and education, they were exposed to diverse perspectives that encouraged independent thought. Religious institutions, which had once been the ultimate arbiters of truth, found themselves increasingly challenged by a society that valued critical thinking and empirical evidence. The power of the church gradually declined as secular governance gained traction, leading to the separation of church and state in many parts of the world. This shift allowed people to explore moral and philosophical questions outside the confines of religious teachings, paving the way for modern secularism. The Enlightenment did not necessarily destroy faith, but it significantly changed the way people view religion. Instead of accepting religious authority without question, individuals began to seek answers through reason, leading to a new era of intellectual freedom and skepticism toward institutions that had long been regarded as infallible. Figures like Charles Darwin, with his theory of evolution, presented ideas that seemed to contradict religious teachings, reshaping humanity's understanding of life itself. Before Darwin, the dominant belief, particularly in Christian societies, was that all living beings were created by God in their present forms, as described in religious texts. The idea of divine creation was deeply ingrained in human culture, and questioning it was often seen as blasphemous. However, in 1859, Darwin published On the Origin of Species, introducing the concept of natural selection. He argued that species were not fixed but evolved over time through gradual adaptations to their environments. This groundbreaking theory challenged the notion of a purposeful divine creation and suggested that life's complexity could emerge through natural processes rather than supernatural intervention. The implications of Darwin's work were profound. Many religious leaders and believers saw it as a direct attack on the authority of religious scriptures. If humans were not uniquely created by God, but rather shared a common ancestry with other species, it called into question the traditional view of humanity's special place in the universe. The controversy over evolution versus creationism ignited fierce debates, with some completely rejecting Darwin's ideas while others sought ways to reconcile science with religious belief. Over time, as more fossil evidence and genetic research supported evolution, the scientific community overwhelmingly accepted it as the best explanation for the diversity of life. Despite this, the debate persists to this day, with some religious groups continuing to reject evolution in favor of creationist beliefs. Darwin's ideas not only changed the field of biology, but also contributed to a broader shift in human thought, encouraging people to question traditional explanations of existence and seek answers through observation and reason. His work remains one of the most influential scientific breakthroughs in history, challenging religious narratives in a way that had never been done before and forever altering the way we understand life on earth. Friedrich Nietzsche famously declared, "God is dead not as a triumphant claim, but as a statement of deep concern about the consequences of a world without faith." Nietzsche was not suggesting that a literal deity had died, but rather that belief in God was fading in Western society due to the rise of science, secularism, and rational thought. He observed that as humanity moved away from religious traditions, the moral and philosophical structures that had been built around faith were crumbling. In his view, religion had long provided a foundation for ethics, values, and meaning, and its decline left a dangerous void. Without God as the ultimate source of morality, Nietzsche feared that society would fall into nihilism, the belief that life has no inherent meaning or purpose. He warned that if people did not create new values to replace religious ones, they would struggle to find purpose in a world where traditional moral frameworks no longer held authority. Nietzsche's philosophy was both a critique and a challenge. He urged individuals to move beyond religious morality and define their own values, an idea he explored through the concept of the Übermensch or Overman. This ideal person would be strong enough to create meaning in a world where traditional faith had lost its influence. However, Nietzsche's ideas were often misunderstood. Some interpreted God is dead as a call for atheism and the rejection of all moral principles, while others saw it as a warning about the dangers of losing faith without replacing it with a new ethical foundation. His philosophy influenced existentialist thinkers such as Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, who grappled with the challenge of finding meaning in an increasingly secular world. Nietzsche's declaration remains one of the most provocative statements in philosophical history, forcing people to confront the implications of a world where belief in God is no longer assumed. His work continues to shape modern debates on morality, purpose, and the role of religion in human society. Atheism and secularism have risen, questioning the necessity of God in an age of scientific advancement and individual freedom. Throughout most of human history, belief in a deity was nearly universal, shaping laws, moral codes, and social structures. However, as societies modernized, skepticism about the existence of God grew, leading to the rise of atheism and secularism. Several historical factors contributed to this shift, including the Enlightenment, the Industrial Revolution, and the increasing reliance on science to explain natural phenomena. The more people understood about the universe, the less they felt the need to invoke divine explanations. Secularism gained momentum as governments moved away from religious rule, leading to a separation of church and state. This allowed people to engage with ethical and philosophical questions without relying on religious doctrine, fostering a culture in which faith was no longer a requirement for morality or purpose. Philosophers such as Karl Marx, Sigmund Freud, and Richard Dawkins have argued that belief in God is either a psychological construct, a tool of social control, or an outdated way of explaining the unknown. Advances in science, particularly in biology, physics, and cosmology, have further challenged religious narratives, making secular perspectives more appealing to those who value empirical evidence over faith. The spread of information through technology has also played a major role in the rise of atheism, exposing people to diverse viewpoints and encouraging critical thinking. Many individuals now see religion as a personal choice rather than a societal necessity. However, the rise of secularism has sparked debates about the role of religion in public life, with some arguing that removing religious influence leads to greater freedom, while others believe it strips society of the moral and ethical guidance that faith once provided. Despite its growth, atheism is not universally accepted, and religious belief remains strong in many parts of the world. The debate between faith and secularism continues to shape culture, politics, and personal identity, proving that the question of God's necessity is far from settled. Despite skepticism, faith remains strong worldwide, proving that religious belief is not easily extinguished. Even as atheism and secularism grow in many parts of the world, billions of people continue to find meaning, purpose, and identity in religion. Faith has been an integral part of human civilization for thousands of years, shaping cultures, traditions, and moral frameworks. While some argue that scientific advancements in rational thought have made belief in God obsolete, others see no contradiction between faith and reason. Many believers embrace both scientific discoveries and spiritual teachings, viewing them as complementary rather than contradictory. Religion continues to provide answers to life's deepest existential questions, offering comfort in times of suffering and a sense of purpose in an often chaotic world. The persistence of faith can also be attributed to the strong role of religious communities in society. Places of worship serve as centers for social connection, charity, and moral support, reinforcing the bonds between individuals and their shared beliefs. Even in secular societies, religious traditions persist through cultural practices, family values, and national holidays. The resilience of faith is particularly evident in times of crisis, whether personal, political, or global, when people turn to their beliefs for guidance and strength. Furthermore, religious institutions continue to play an influential role in shaping social and political movements, advocating for human rights, justice, and charity. While religious belief has evolved over time, adapting to new knowledge and societal changes, it remains a fundamental part of human life. Even among those who question traditional religious structures, spirituality and the search for higher meaning persist. The fact that faith has endured despite centuries of intellectual challenges suggests that belief in God is not merely a product of ignorance or outdated thinking, but a deeply ingrained aspect of human nature. It continues to thrive because it speaks to fundamental human needs, connection, purpose, and hope. Some scientists now view science and spirituality as compatible, challenging the long-held notion that the two are inherently opposed. For centuries, religion and science have often been seen as conflicting forces, with scientific discoveries frequently contradicting religious explanations of the world. However, many scholars and scientists argue that science and spirituality address different aspects of human understanding. Science seeks to explain the mechanisms of the natural world through observation, experimentation, and empirical evidence, while religion and spirituality explore questions of morality, purpose, and existence. Many scientists acknowledge that while science can explain how the universe works, it does not necessarily answer why it exists or what, if any, purpose lies behind it. This has led some to suggest that scientific discovery does not have to undermine faith, but rather can deepen one's appreciation for the complexity and beauty of the universe. Concepts such as the fine-tuning of the cosmos, the intricate design of DNA, and the conditions necessary for life have led some scientists to propose that a higher intelligence could be behind these phenomena. Even historically, many groundbreaking scientists were deeply religious, such as Isaac Newton, who saw his discoveries as revealing the order of God's creation. Albert Einstein famously stated, "Science without religion is lame, religion without science is blind," emphasizing the idea that both realms offer valuable insights. Today, some religious thinkers accept evolutionary theory and the Big Bang as part of a divine plan rather than conflict with faith. This growing perspective has led to more dialogue between scientists and theologians, encouraging a more nuanced understanding of how faith and reason can coexist. Rather than being locked in a battle, many now see science and spirituality as two ways of exploring the same profound mysteries of existence, each offering its own unique contributions to human knowledge and experience. The debate over God's existence continues in philosophy, with thinkers arguing for and against the necessity of a divine being. Philosophers have been grappling with the question of God's existence for centuries, developing complex arguments both in favor of and against the concept of a higher power. Some, like St. Thomas Aquinas, have argued that the order and causality observed in the universe suggest an intelligent creator. His famous 5 ways provide logical reasons for believing in God, including the idea that everything in existence must have a cause, and that this chain of causes must ultimately lead to a first uncaused God. Other philosophical traditions, such as the moral argument, suggest that objective moral values must come from a divine source. If morality were purely subjective, critics argue, then ethical principles would be arbitrary and lack a firm foundation. On the other hand, atheistic and agnostic philosophers, such as David Hume and Bertrand Russell, have challenged these arguments that there is no empirical evidence to support the existence of God. They argue that natural processes rather than divine intervention can explain the universe and morality. The problem of evil remains one of the most significant philosophical challenges to theism. If an all-powerful, all-good God exists, why does suffering and injustice persist in the world? Various theodicies attempt to reconcile this, claiming that free will, human limitations, or a divine plan beyond human understanding may justify suffering. Existentialist philosophers such as Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus rejected the idea of a higher power, arguing that humans must create their own meaning in a universe that does not inherently provide one. The philosophical debate over God's existence is far from settled. With new perspectives and arguments, society's understanding of the world evolves. The discussion continues to shape not only religious and secular thought, but also ethical frameworks, legal systems, and cultural attitudes towards spirituality and belief. Technology and modern life have changed how people engage with religion, making faith more accessible, yet also challenging traditional beliefs. The digital age has transformed nearly every aspect of human life, including spirituality and religious practice. In the past, religious engagement was often tied to physical places of worship and community gatherings. Today, however, technology has allowed people to access religious teachings, discussions, and services online, making faith more accessible to those who might not otherwise participate in traditional religious settings. Many religious organizations have adapted to this shift, offering virtual sermons, prayer groups, and social media discussions to connect with believers worldwide. This has allowed religious communities to reach a global audience, fostering interfaith dialogue and spreading religious teachings beyond geographical boundaries. However, modern life has also introduced new challenges to faith. The fast-paced, secularized nature of contemporary society has led some to drift away from religious traditions, prioritizing personal pursuits over spiritual commitments. The rise of individualism has encouraged people to question religious authority, leading to an increase in spiritual but not religious identities, where individuals seek personal meaning outside of organized religion. Additionally, exposure to a vast array of worldviews through the internet has led many to reconsider their inherited beliefs, prompting interfaith exchanges, conversions, and in some cases, religious skepticism. Scientific advancements, particularly in fields such as neuroscience and artificial intelligence, have raised new philosophical and ethical questions about the nature of consciousness, free will, and the origins of life, questions that were once primarily addressed by religion. While some see these advancements as a threat to traditional religious narratives, others believe they provide an opportunity for deeper exploration of spiritual questions in a modern context. The intersection of technology and religion is reshaping how faith is practiced and perceived, proving that while religious engagement is evolving, spirituality remains a vital aspect of human life, continually adapting to new cultural and technological landscapes. The human need for meaning and purpose continues to drive belief in God, even as secular ideologies grow. Throughout history, people have sought answers to profound existential questions. Why are we here? What is our purpose? What happens after death? Religion has traditionally provided structured answers to these questions, offering a sense of meaning that goes beyond material existence. Despite the rise of secularism, many still find comfort and purpose in religious belief, as it provides a moral framework and a connection to something greater than themselves. Even in modern societies where science explains much of the physical world, it does not necessarily satisfy the deeper human longing for purpose and existential fulfillment. While secular philosophies propose that meaning is something individuals must create for themselves, religion offers a predefined structure that helps individuals navigate life's uncertainties. Psychological studies have shown that belief in God or a higher power is associated with reduced anxiety, increased resilience, and a greater sense of well-being. Faith often provides hope in times of suffering, giving individuals a reason to persevere through hardship. The idea that life has an ultimate purpose, whether in service to God, the pursuit of virtue, or the promise of an afterlife, can be a powerful source of motivation. Even those who abandon traditional religious belief often turn to alternative spiritual practices or philosophical systems that seek to answer the same fundamental questions. The persistence of this search suggests that the human mind is naturally inclined to seek deeper meaning beyond mere survival. This explains why even in highly secularized cultures, spirituality and religious practices continue to thrive in different forms. While the ways people seek purpose may change, the underlying need remains the same, ensuring that belief in God or higher powers continues to be a central aspect of human experience. Faith for many is not just about doctrine or rituals. It is a response to an intrinsic human longing for meaning, connection, and transcendence. Whether one believes that God is alive, dead, or never existed at all, the question remains as compelling as ever. History has shown that faith is not easily erased. It transforms, adapts, and resurfaces in new forms, proving its deep-rooted significance in human life. Science, philosophy, and modernity have undoubtedly challenged traditional religious beliefs, but they have not eliminated the fundamental human search for meaning, purpose, and connection to something greater than ourselves. As long as people continue to wrestle with life's biggest questions about existence, morality, and the unknown, faith in some form will persist. Perhaps the real question is not whether God is dead, but how humanity will continue to shape its relationship with the divine in an ever-evolving world.